side, so this one is right at the end of that.
I'm a rank and file member here at Local 23, and I want to thank you guys for coming here today for the 100th anniversary of the 1916 strike and our plaque that we got passed that's put on this bridge to remember this forever.
How blessed are we today? Those of you from Tacoma know how truly lucky we are today with this weather. And the Seahawks won. It's just God loves us today. Sorry, Raider fans. Well, okay, you'll lose later, but you won today. Good. Hey, just to, what we just did is really symbolic of everything we have going on this week with the Pensioners Convention. So for those of you that aren't aware, we had the pensioners that went before us coming this way, and our active members coming this way to meet us in the middle and celebrate what we are. So I'd like to thank you all for being a part of that. Today too is amazing for those of us that have been around in Tacoma for a while, and I want to give some heartfelt thank yous. I would have never thought we'd see the day that we were acknowledging and paying respect to labor and the men and women that built not only this bridge, but this town and everything we see around us. And it took a lot of my guys working, guys and girls working politically, but the response was great. So I would like to thank Mayor Marilyn Strickland and the City Council for having the wherewithal and the fortitude to acknowledge us and to say that we are the ones that built this town. So can we get a round of applause for them? I never thought I'd see the day. Another special thanks. We're so blessed and lucky to have a historian in Tacoma that knows more about longshoring and labor issues than everyone here put together, and that's Dr. Ron Magden, who is an honorary member of the ILWU. We would not, it's simple fact, we would not have got this done or anything done that we're doing this week without him. Where is Ron? Hey, love you, Ron. Thank you. And then we had some of our members, some hard-working, they put a lot of work, countless hours into this. Our pensioners president, Mike Jagelski. Todd Iverson did a ton of work behind the scenes and planning and getting this done. And retiree Jim Norton, who just was in the background, pushing and poking and making stuff happen. While I'm at it, I want to acknowledge some special folks. Steve Conway, for those of you that aren't aware, most of my members are aware how terrible the press was during our contract negotiations, and we didn't have a lot of friendly people in the government, easy to say, but we did have Steve Conway. And I really want to take a moment, another example of leadership that's not afraid to stand up and say that labor should be respected and it's okay to support us. So thank you, Steve. I see some city councilmen here. Connor McCarthy. The city council, by the way, backed this 100%. So when we were planning this 6 months ago, I was shooting for, if we're lucky, we're going to maybe get a majority, 100%. I see Anders Ipsen here. Can you raise your hand, please? Connor McCarthy. Do you have any other of you here? And I have Prosecutor Mark Linguist. Thank you. And Superior Court Judge Tom Quinlan. Thank you guys for the support. We couldn't have done this without you. And I'd like to acknowledge we have our international officers here. This is probably going to be the biggest. It's definitely the biggest thing in the last 30 years that we've had in Tacoma, but I could say going forward, it's a challenge of youngsters to outdo me on this, but I think it'll be the biggest thing we have in Tacoma going forward for 30 years. I'd like to acknowledge we have all of our international officers, starting with International President Bob McElrath, Vice President Ray Familetti, our Coast Committeemen, Cam Williams and Frank Ponce de Leon. And International Secretary Treasurer, and still, for those of you who haven't seen him, member of 23, Willie Adams. We have officers and members from all up and down the coast. I thank you for coming. We have some special guests. We have one from all the way from Australia, young worker here from the MUA, Kyle McGinn. And thank you everyone that came from Canada. We got a big showing from Canada. Thank you. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming. And really to the pensioners. Oh, Jimmy Donovan, we even have a special, thank you for pointing that out. Jimmy Donovan, so a pensioner, when we went to Australia, we have a special relationship with Australia, and when we went to work on the young workers, they learned that we really have a lot of respect for our pensioners here, and Jim got hooked up, and now we got a pensioner connection with the MUA in Australia, and we got one of their greatest and a dear friend of mine, Jimmy Donovan, and his wife. If you get a chance this week, search out the people with the funny accent, go talk to them. You'll be glad you did. And I want to thank you, all of you pensioners that are here. A heartfelt thank you from me for passing the torch of unity and solidarity and setting the table for us that are active now to really, not only the jobs that we have, but the wonderful benefits we have. So thank all of you. Oh, and this week, just the things that keep happening and falling down upon each other. We're going to be doing a statue unveiling of the founder of our union, Harry Bridges, and his daughter, Kathy, was able to make this, and she is here somewhere. Kathy Bridges. Make sure you get to say thanks and hello to her. I missed anything else? It's quite possible that I did. Dave Arian, our ex-president of the ILWU, is here to celebrate with us too.
All right. What's up, Joey?
And I see a couple of from California. We have LA President Bobby Oliveira Jr. came down, and our pensioner President of California, Greg Mitri. I knew I wouldn't get all that, but don't hold it against me. To all of you that are currently in the workforce today, I ask you that we always remember we have a debt to pay. A debt to those hard-working men and women that formed this Longshore Union back in 1886 here in Tacoma. A debt to pay to those brave men and women who took a stand on this bridge. A bridge that became a symbolic representation of the troubled waters that can separate capital from labor. This beautiful city on one side, I feel, represents the capital of the city. By capital, I mean, you know, the business and what you think of when you think of a city. And this is a prime example of what we look on the other side. And to those days in the past, it didn't look near this pretty, but the grime and grit of the industrial working waterfront on the other side. We have a debt to pay to the man that lost his life and the brothers who went to jail for 18 months that made a stand on this bridge to tell the employers that there must be a balance between progress and people. Never forget that. A debt not only to the tough longshoremen, but all working class people that stood with us in solidarity in the strike of 1934 that helped us achieve a coast-wide contract. This was a contract that leveled the playing field, so no longer worker could be divided against worker and pit one against the other, port to port. This brought true stability up and down the west coast of the United States. And other unions backed us tremendously. They realized how important that was, and they made it happen. So brothers and sisters, now this is for more of you active people right now, and I want you, it'll make sense, you'll know when to say it, but when I get to that point, I would like you to all repeat, we have a debt to pay. We'll practice real quick. 1, 2, 3. So brothers and sisters, next time you have to put on those greasy overalls and head toward the ship, they may be wet, you might not want to put them on, take that moment to say to yourself. And next time you go to the doctor and you realize that your medical bill is completely paid for. And when it's almost lunchtime and you're not sure if you can grab one more container and get back to the ship before lunch, remember. And if the unfortunate day comes where we have to stand in solidarity on a picket line to defend the dignity of labor, never forget. At this time, I'm going to explain what we're going to do. There's some dates that are significant on this bridge and in Tacoma. And as these people, the next people come up, they're going to be speaking to you as the person in that moment of time. And it'll be 1886, 1916, 1934, and it will end with our young workers today currently. So remember that as they're speaking with you. And starting off, we're going to have our pensioner lead this off, Mike Jagelski, and the time period is 1886.
Before I become Charles Trench, thank you all. This has exceeded my expectations. Thank you. My name is Charles Trench. I was born in Germany in 1850. When I was 19 years old, I went to sea. And in 1879, the ship I was in sailed into Commencement Bay, and I saw that mountain, and I said, this is my home. So I took my pay, and I went and I bought a bunch of lumber, and I built a shack up in Sullivan's Gulch, so I could see the ships as they came into port. And when they did, I ran down there, and I got a job. Stood along the shore, and they hired me. Before long, there were 24 of us living up there in Sullivan's Gulch. And we went down there to get some jobs. We'd kibitz about what was going on, and we heard they had a union in Portland, and they got a raise. So we went on the ship, told the boss we wanted a raise. No way. We walked off the ship. Took 3 days before we beat him. We got a raise. We formed a union. We got a raise and we formed a union. We formed a union and we were successful because we stood together. We were in solidarity. We would never forget that day, March 22nd, 1886, when we got our union. Never forget. Do your best. Pass it on. Do your best. Never forget. That became our mantra. And when the time came, we passed that on to the next generation. Do your best. Never forget. Solidarity. Stand tall. Be one. And in 1916, where did he go? Alexander Laidlaw came along, and we passed it on.
Thank you. My name is Scotty Laidlaw, and I am a longshoreman in Tacoma. I am 26 years old, and I was killed last night. The last thing I remember was chaos, men scrambling this way and that. I was struck over the head with something, and when I got to my feet, there was a loud bang. I saw the security guard pointing his gun as I looked down at my hand. On my belly, I realized I was covered in blood. My God, they shot me. How is this whole strike going to work out? Can we really get a coastwise contract that covers all the ports? I fear if we don't, that the employers will never respect us enough to treat us fairly. They made promise after promise that if we work just a little harder and a little faster, that they would bring all the work here and we would be able to have a job we can count on. But it just never happens. I am tired of watching the bosses give the job to those that they will do a few favors or turn a blind eye on the job. I know I am not the only one tired of that. We have true solidarity right now, 1,200 members and thousands more. I think that is enough, but it is not. Yet, my death has sent shockwaves throughout the docks. I am saddened by the violence, but I must tell you, my heart is full of pride as I think about workers stopping the trolley car full of strikers from crossing this bridge and taking them on. And yes, we are going to jail for 18 months. This is solidarity. The question I have for you is, what would you do?
come to 1934.
My name is Martin Frederickson. I was the president of the Tacoma Local for a number of years. Times were mighty tough in 1934. Great Depression, unbelievable poverty, poor wages, terrible working conditions. If you got hurt on the job, that was your problem. And you had to finish your shift because the boss didn't care. All of us, from San Diego to Bellingham, knew we had to stand together, and if we were going to beat them, solidarity was our best weapon. In 1960, they beat us because they broke that solidarity. Never again. We will not forget. So, we stood together when they unleashed their army against us on July 5th. We stood together in the aftermath, and eventually we beat the boss. We got a contract, and then we set our sight on future gains. We earned them. The boss didn't give us anything. We earned them. We bargained for them. Hospital care, better wages, a pension, a better health care package. It just kept getting better because we stood as one in solidarity. And we never forgot those who set the table for us. And we pass that legacy on to the next generation.
So now we're current. This is one of our young members, Brian Skivington. I almost called you Zach.
Oh my God. It's 2016. It's really an honor to be here on this bridge representing my sisters and brothers, young workers, and the current generation of ILWU Local 23. My name is Brian Skivington. I'm a third-generation longshoreman on the Port of Tacoma and a proud member of the ILWU. For anybody who knows my father over there, that's Roger Skivington. And my mother, Susan Skivington. This bridge means everything to Tacoma Longshore workers. Our history is on this bridge. This is our bridge. This is a workers' bridge. And that out there is a workers' port. And as long as there's a Tacoma Longshore Union here, that's always going to be a workers' port. It's been 100 years since 1916, and I have to think, what has changed? A couple years ago, we were down on the Columbia River. We were locked out on the grain. And I remember a lot of barbed wire and a lot of machine guns and assault rifles down there. And 100 years ago, they turned those docks into a fortress. And there was a lot of barbed wire and a lot of machine guns down there. By show of hands, who here has ever reported for picket duty and stood on a picket line? Scotty Laidbaugh reported for picket duty, and he was shot. Every single one of us could very easily be Scotty Laidbaugh, because we're out here fighting for our families, for our communities, and for each other. So remember that. It's the price we pay. We have a debt to pay. Dean said it several times. I'm going to say it a couple more. Every good thing that I have in my life came from being raised in a Longshore family, an ILWU family, and I couldn't be prouder of carrying on that tradition. My generation of Tacoma Longshore, we have a debt to pay. And that's going to be the rest of our lives on this waterfront, trying to pay that debt, to keep those values and those traditions and those lessons that were learned through hard-fought struggle alive. I guess to close this, I want to say long live Tacoma Longshore unionism. All power to the workers. Thank you.
Before we do the last, we're gonna do a ceremony, and this is a wreath that we're gonna have those four members led over together into the waters. But before that, I want to make sure to invite all of you to ILWU Local 23 in Tacoma. There's going to be some handouts and literature. I think the directions are on the back of that. We're going to have a big barbecue. We're going to celebrate solidarity and more than anything, talk to each other and have a good time. So before we do that, we're also going to read the plaque. We'll read the plaque and then we'll let go of the wreath. And to read that, I'm going to have Mike read the first half and then one of our young workers read the second.
Y'all be getting tired of seeing my face. The Tacoma Longshoremen never surrendered. For 197 days in the summer of 1916, the Murray Morgan Bridge, then the 11th Street Bridge, was a fire line in a labor conflagration consuming ports up and down the west coast. This plaque marks where longshoremen built a barricade of straw bales to stop workers coming in or going out. It was the flashpoint of a labor shakeup which redefined labor and management in every major western U.S. port. For 15 years, West Coast longshoremen had sought a coast-wide contract. City of Destiny longshoremen, backed by the entire Tacoma labor movement, had been in the fray twice as long as employers pitted Seattle against Tacoma. The employers' tactics failed. On June 1st, 1916, every longshoreman from Bellingham to San Diego hung the hook in solidarity. 12,500 men, including 1,100 Tacomans, vowing to stay out until a coast-wide contract was in hand.
Because the 11th Street Bridge was the main conduit for the Lunch Bucket Brigade between downtown Tacoma and the port, it became the focus of daily confrontations. On July 12th, Union picket James Costello was stabbed repeatedly by two scabs near this marker. He died 6 months later. On July 14th, Alexander Scotty Laidlaw was walking toward downtown to see a movie after finishing picket duty. A special deputy fired wildly into the street, and Laidlaw cried, my God, I've been shot," as he fell, mortally wounded. Fights occurred sporadically at all 29 West Coast ports. In Oakland, scabs ambushed Louis A. Morey as he picketed, and in San Francisco, Thomas Olson was shot in the back by a deputy. Intense battles were fought in front of the waterfront employer's office in downtown Seattle, where Harry Reagan was stabbed mortally and Joseph Goldsby was beaten to death by special deputies. Labor strife ebbed and flowed for years. The coast-wide agreement was finally signed October 12, 1934. Tacoma Local 23 International Longshore Warehouse Union dedicates this plaque on the 100th anniversary of the 1916 strike to the 6 workers who gave their lives in the quest for coast-wide unity: James Costello of Tacoma, Alexander Laidlaw of Tacoma, James Goldsby, Seattle, Harry Reagan, Seattle, Louis Morey, Oakland, and Thomas Olson, San Francisco.
Before we do the wreath ceremony, in fact, I'll ask those 4 people that that represented each of those time periods to take the wreath and walk to the middle, please. We're gonna let this go over the water. And they're gonna release it together as a symbolic gesture of solidarity, not only through each other, but throughout time. Because the battle really is always the same. It's just those who will pick up the torch.
This is one I used when we were in the middle of a really ugly contract negotiation. It's one of my favorite ones. So I'll sing it out to you once. You guys will call it together after that. And it's Uniontown through and through, you for me and me for you, which is truly what Tacoma is. So, ready? Uniontown through and through, you for me and me for you. Uniontown through and through, you for me and me for you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming. Anyone that wants to be part of the wreath ceremony, head that way. Anyone else, come back to the hall. We're going to have a good time and a good barbecue. We'll see you then. Thanks.